You know it. You've heard it a million times. Yes, that little ditty. Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her father 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. Lizzie Borden enthusiasts and historians have attempted to track down this doggerel, which is the type of poetry it is called, to its origins, with little success. Until now. Previous to this find, we have had to rely on anecdotes by descendants of Fall River residents who have regaled us with stories of their parents and grandparents as children reciting the rhyme in Lizzie Borden's presence, or chanting it outside her home in Fall River, knowing she was home. Borden scholar Kat Corey, my sister, has finally found proof positive that the poem was in fact around very soon after the time of Lizzie Borden's trial in 1893. So maybe, just maybe, as the experts and locals have been opining, Lizzie did hear this at her trial through an open window. We know now for certain that she must have heard it in her lifetime. Previous to this discovery, the earliest mention in print of the doggerel was determined to be in Edmund Pearson's Studies in Murder, in a chapter called The Borden Case, published in 1924. On page 69, he writes, "An account of the case would be incomplete if it did not record the fact that, however unjustly, the event was celebrated in rhyme, in one of those jingles which are never forgotten. Who invented it, nobody knows, but everyone heard it. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks, and when she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. This has been communicated to me," continues Pearson, "in one way or another, at least a half a dozen times while I have been writing this article by persons to whom it was the most vivid recollection of the Fall River murders, surpassing even the mutton soup. Miss Carolyn Wells, author of Nonsense Anthology 1910, told me once, when she was repeating some limericks and nonsense rhymes to President Theodore Roosevelt on the veranda at Sagamore Hill, Theodore Roosevelt's home, he recited this and said that of all the doggerel verse he had ever heard, it remained the most persistently in his mind. Carolyn Wells was a librarian and author of literary charades, novels, verse, detective stories, humor, and children's books. Literary charades are literary games or riddles where each syllable of the answer is described as a separate word before the word is detailed. An example is this one, also known to be a favorite of President Theodore Roosevelt. I talk, but do not speak my mind. I hear words, but I do not listen to thoughts. When I wake, all see me. When I sleep, all hear me. Many heads are on my shoulders. My hands are at my feet. The strongest steel cannot break my visage, but the softest whisper can destroy me. The quietest whimper can be heard." The answer? An actor. Carolyn Wells wrote a total of 170 books. During the first 10 years of her career, she concentrated on poetry, humor, and children's books. According to her autobiography, The Rest of My Life, written in 1937, she heard a book titled That Affair Next Door, written in 1897, one of Anna Catherine Green's mystery novels, being read aloud, and was immediately captivated by the unraveling of the puzzle. From that point onward, she devoted herself to the mystery genre. Among the most famous of her mystery novels were The Fleming Stone Detective. In addition to books, Wells also wrote for newspapers. Her poetry accompanies the work of some of the leading lights in illustration and cartooning, often in the form of Sunday magazine cover features that formed continuing narratives from week to week. She died in New York in 1942. Wells had been married to Hadwin Houghton, the heir of the Houghton-Mifflin publishing empire, founded by H.O. Houghton. Wells also had an impressive collection of volumes of poetry by others. She bequeathed her collection of Walt Whitman poetry, said to be one of the most important of its kind for its completeness and rarity, to the Library of Congress. Unfortunately, Wells does not include the Lizzie Borden Doggerel in her book, but it seems that she was aware of his existence and told it to the president, who apparently found it quite memorable. But let's get to the earliest mention in print. While searching for Lizzie Borden in newspaper archives recently, I found the following, published February 3rd, 1894, in the Morning News of Savannah, Georgia. A Boston lady who brings her children up very carefully and never allows them to see a newspaper, found them on going into her nursery the other day singing, "Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 20 whacks. After seeing what she'd done, she gave her father 21. While the rhyme is slightly different in the number of whacks, the intent and the message is the same as the one we have come to know. The fact that this appears in a Georgia newspaper, I think, is significant. In the days that followed, the same blurb is repeated verbatim in newspapers nationwide, like the St. Louis Globe-Democrat, the News Journal of Wilmington, Delaware, the Evening Visitor of Raleigh, North Carolina, the Democrat and Chronicle of Rochester, New York, the Pittsburgh Press of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the News Herald of Hillsboro, Ohio, the Charlotte Democrat of Charlotte, North Carolina, and the Tacoma Daily Ledger of Tacoma, Washington. Perhaps an even earlier publication will surface. February 1894 was less than 8 months following the Lizzie Borden acquittal for the murder of her father and stepmother. More contemporary stories told by authors claim, without citing their sources, that Lizzie heard the rhyme while she was on trial for her life. And perhaps this is so. But until we have proof of this in some published form, we can only imagine this event. Until next time.